Imagine trusting a bank with your entire life savings, only to discover it was all a lie. A lie that stole over 2 billion rands, destroyed communities, and left whistleblowers fearing for their lives. This is the story of VBS Mutual Bank, South Africa's great bank heist, and the mastermind who promised transformation but delivered betrayal. Welcome to Crime and Contention. VBS Mutual Bank's story begins in 1982. It was first known as the Vendor Building Society, a small, community-focused institution designed to bring financial access to people ignored by the big banks. Over time, it built credibility, serving rural Limpopo and parts of Gauteng. In 2012, the bank rebranded as VBS Mutual Bank, with ambitions to become a modern Black-owned financial powerhouse. It positioned itself as a champion of economic transformation, offering loans, investment products, and partnerships that promised to lift up the very communities that needed help the most. Before the headlines called him a fraudster, Chifewa Matotsi was hailed as a pioneer. He grew up in Limpopo, one of South Africa's most underserved provinces, and he liked to remind people that he never forgot where he came from. In his early 20s, he studied law and finance and quickly built a network of mentors and supporters who saw promise in his sharp mind and relentless energy. By the time he reached his 30s, Matotsi had become an influential figure in business circles. He spoke with the kind of conviction that could fill a room. He knew how to tell people exactly what they wanted to hear, especially in an era hungry for transformation. When he took over as chairman of VBS Mutual Bank, he promised nothing less than a revolution, a bank that would finally empower Black South Africans, pensioners, entrepreneurs, small towns left behind by the big financial institutions. At first, most people believed him, but behind the scenes, there were early signs that the story wasn't as perfect as it looked. Some auditors raised questions about irregular payments and unusually rapid growth. A few employees noticed how money seemed to appear and disappeared in the accounts, but Matotsi had a talent for explaining it away. He would insist that people questioning his vision simply didn't understand transformation, and in many cases, those voices fell silent. It also helped that Matotsi knew how to cultivate powerful allies. Local politicians, municipal managers, even a few prominent businessmen were eager to be seen alongside the rising star. After all, supporting VBS meant supporting a homegrown success story, and Matotsi made sure that everyone knew there were benefits to staying loyal. So while the marketing campaign spoke of community upliftment, VBS quietly began to shift its focus away from serving ordinary people and towards serving the ambitions of those in charge. What the public didn't realize was that the very trust Matotsi had spent years building would become his most powerful weapon. To understand just how the VBS scandal began, the great bank heist, you have to look at how the scam was engineered and why so many powerful people stayed silent. At the heart of the fraud was a simple formula: create fake deposits, hide the shortfall, reward loyalty. Over the years, VBS produced fictitious deposits, entries in the system that made it look like the bank was flush with money. In reality, it was burning through the money of pensioners, municipalities, and small investors. And the masterminds understood something. If you want to keep the scam alive, you have to make sure the right people are looked after. In recent testimonies, Chifira Matodzi described exactly how that was done. That wasn't a theory, that was Matodzi himself finally admitting that VBS bribed officials to keep the money flowing. According to Matodzi, some of the funds were paid in cash, some in donations, and some routed through companies designed to look legitimate. While communities believed they were investing in development, their money was being used to buy luxury vehicles, designer clothing, designer bags, and million-rand homes. And the paper trail was carefully disguised. In other words, VBS wasn't growing because it was successful. It was growing because it was bribing people to look the other way. The Reserve Bank's forensic investigation revealed just how elaborate the deception was. Auditors were misled with fabricated statements. Politicians and officials were rewarded for their silence. And when the money started running out, the fraudsters simply created more fictitious deposits to paper over the gaps. At its peak, VBS was nothing more than a sophisticated Ponzi scheme, using new deposits to pay interest and keep up appearances. But eventually the numbers stopped adding up, and the trust Matodzi had built over decades was finally about to shatter. By early 2018, the illusion of prosperity was cracking. Whispers about money missing had turned into open suspicions. The Reserve Bank ordered an independent forensic investigation and inquiry that would expose the scale of this deception. But while the regulators were getting closer, some of the earliest warnings didn't come from official channels. They came from the inside. A small number of insiders risked everything to sound the alarm. One of them was Sipho Gift Mbata, an employee who tried to alert authorities long before the collapse. In interviews, whistleblowers described a culture of fear and intimidation. Those who dared to question why money kept vanishing were quickly pushed out, or worse. As investigators dug further and further, deeper and deeper, the Reserve Bank discovered that VBS's report assets were inflated by over 1.9 billion rands. The liquidity crisis was immediate and catastrophic. Pensioners lined up in the hope of retrieving their savings, only to find out their accounts were empty. Municipalities discovered that the entire budgets had disappeared. By November 2018, the inevitable happened. VBS was placed into liquidation. In the process, the bank's promise to empower collapsed overnight. But for the whistleblowers like Mbata, the danger didn't end there. While the masterminds were starting to face justice, those who tried to warn the country were forced to live in fear. An uncomfortable reminder of how corruption doesn't only steal money, it steals safety and trust. When VBS collapsed, it left behind more than just empty accounts. It left communities in ruins, pensioners without a safety net, and a country grappling with the question. How did this happen in plain sight? In the months that followed, investigators moved to hold those responsible accountable. At the center stood Chifhiwa Matodzi, the man once hailed as a visionary. It was one of the most comprehensive admissions of guilt in South African financial history. Standing before the judge, Matodzi admitted to orchestrating the elaborate fraud that siphoned billions out of VBS. But he wasn't alone. Philip Truter, the former chief financial officer, also pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 10 years behind bars. Yet, despite the scales of justice, only these two men have been convicted so far. More than 20 other high-profile suspects, including politicians and municipal officials, have been charged, but their cases remain unresolved years later. For many South Africans, that partial accountability still feels like an incomplete reckoning, because behind the numbers are real stories. Retirees who lost everything, small businesses that never reopened, communities still grappling with betrayal, and even today, whistleblowers like Sipho Gift Mbata remain in hiding, fearful that speaking the truth might have cost them their lives. The liquidation of VBS Mutual Bank in November 2018 marked the end of an institution that once promised hope. It was truly a visionary that inspired millions, and a deception that destroyed them all. As new cases continue to work their way through the courts, South Africa is left with an urgent lesson. In a society hungry for transformation, trust can be the most dangerous currency of all. This case is more than just a cautionary tale. It's a reminder that in the wrong hands, trust can be the most dangerous currency of all. If you want to see more in-depth investigations into South Africa's biggest financial crimes, subscribe to the channel. Share this video so more people understand how ordinary lives are ruined by extraordinary greed. Thank you for watching Crime and Contention. Until the next one, stay safe and take care.